Hello and welcome to Love and Happiness. I'm Barbara and this is my handsome husband Vandy, and we're here today to talk to you about intimacy.
Yes.
We're so excited because a lot of couples, Vandy, they struggle with intimacy and what the meaning of that word is.
And how to keep it, because oftentimes relationships, especially if you've been together for a while, you can lose focus on how important intimacy is.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden, not only are you two ships passing in the night, but all of a sudden you're just not generating sparks
and connected
in the relationship, you know. And so we really are excited because we know today is going to help give you some tools on how to kind of kickstart or reignite your intimacy, help you understand why it's so important. And so with that in mind, we're just going to go right on in, and we'll start with your series of questions and we'll just go from there.
Wonderful. Well, the first question I have, and many of you may have, what exactly is intimacy? So what is intimacy?
That's true, because intimacy is different for a lot of people. And interestingly enough, and we've touched on this a little bit, the world's definition of intimacy is so different than what God intended intimacy to look like, particularly in a marriage.
Right.
So the world's definition, if you Google intimacy, you're going to come up with all kinds of things that have to do with physically in the bedroom. It is not going to give you a lot of the real, authentic aspects of intimacy, because you can be in bed with someone and never really connected to that person.
That's right.
And conversely, you can be on two sides of the globe and intimately be connected when that connection is authentic, when it's what it's supposed to be. So let's get your thoughts, because you are my goal and objective to have intimacy. You're my life's work. So intimacy in your eyes is?
Look, in my eyes, intimacy is when you are into that person, not on a physical level, as you said, but on a spiritual connection, that you understand the core of that individual, that the soul of that individual, the spirit of that individual, just getting into who they really are, and making every effort you can to get to know them as a person. What makes them happy? What makes them sad? What makes them tick? You know, their triggers. Just trying to find out who they are, and allowing them to share a part of them that no one else sees. You know, no one else get to see the part of Barbara that you get to see. You know, you see my soul, you see my spirit, you see my tears, my joys. So intimacy is getting into the other person and putting everything you have into getting to know who they are, their spirit and their soul.
And I love that. And for those who are watching, oftentimes they have an understanding from that vantage. It's like having a tip on how to, but not necessarily knowing how to execute the how to. So if someone says, all you have to do is, and then you're like, yeah, but how do you do what you seem to say so easily? And I think that a lot of times the challenge for people to really get a foothold on intimacy is because they really don't realize where it started. And what intimacy, if we go back to what the origin or the initial intent of intimacy was, it was designed to be between us and the Lord. So God created us for relationship. So the first relationship that any of us really should have on an intimate level is the one we have with the Lord Jesus Christ.
Amen.
And by having that relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ first, we then discover how to connect past disappointments, past difficult trials and seasons. And most of us have learned, those of us who really are in love with the Lord, we learn how to stay connected to God even when we don't necessarily feel his presence, we don't feel things are going our way. And in a relationship, it's the same thing, Barbara. Wow. It's like when I'm in the relationship, there are moments that I am not going to feel the right way. Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't.
Right.
And as a result, if I don't know how to tap into the intimate side of our relationship, of our covenant, then what'll happen is my feelings will override my connection.
Oh, wow.
And so most of the times in a relationship, the reason intimacy is dwindled or lost is because someone's disappointment, anger, feelings, resentment has overridden their covenant or their connection. So what you have to bear in mind when you're really interested in protecting the intimacy, to say, hey, we've got a connection. I don't want to lose the connection. There's no reason that you can't regain ground that you've lost. Okay. When you understand that the first thing I need to do is all I have to do, I'll say it that way, is realize the same way I need to connect with Christ is how I need to connect with my mate. And by that, what I mean is, when you are struggling in your walk with Christ, what you do is you seek him more.
That's good.
You seek to give him more glory than the problems that are afflicting or affecting you.
Yes.
And when you are more concerned about, I just want to get into his presence, I want to get beyond the veil. When I really desire to say, God, I just want more of you. It doesn't matter if the car is broken down. It doesn't matter if the job has laid you off. It doesn't matter if you're laying in the hospital bed. But when you desire to say, past my circumstances, I need you.
Wow.
And when that press beyond the veil, beyond the circumstances become the focus, you connect with God in a way that allows you all of a sudden to allow your situation to become secondary. That the relationship with God is the most important thing. When you learn that path, you mirror that. Wow. And this is why Ephesians talks about marriage being like Christ and the church and husbands and wives. Because when we mirror that passion to say, I have to go beyond the circumstances, because there are going to be seasons where you just disagree. You are just not in the mood for each other. You're not. Maybe there's some water under the bridge, and because of the water under the bridge, you're saying to yourself, I just don't feel the way I used to feel. And what you're really saying is, what I've been through has overridden or has taken a greater authority over my intimacy. And so you have to willing on a conscious level decide that I'm going to will myself into the connection beyond the circumstances.
Teach.
And when we do that, that's when we can start to forgive. That's when we can start to regain the ground we've lost in a relationship. So one of the things that I would say, I say all of that to say this, that when your focus, when your passion is to regain the connection, you must be willing to step over all of the things in the past. And it has to be reciprocal.
Yes.
Because while you are pressing towards Christ, Christ loved you in the trespass of your sins. When you were yet sinners, that he had already pressed towards you. So when I'm going to make the press towards my mate, we need to speak about first the importance of regaining our intimacy. Otherwise, one person will get discouraged. It has to be a joint effort. It has to be we both do this together and we both say, hey, we're going to work on this. I don't want to be disconnected from you. Do you want to be disconnected from me? And they say no. And you say, okay, so we can't ignore we've been through some things. We can't ignore that we've had some disappointments, some hurts. You've said some things, you've done some things. I've said some things, I've done some things. Whatever that is, you can't ignore those things, because those are the things that allow you to have the testimony that God is going to give you. So you stand on the mistakes. You don't try to sweep them under the rugs as if they never happened. You stand on them and you say, in light of that, I still choose you. In light of that, I still choose us. And we press towards winning. We press towards creating our love affair. We press towards not letting external things affect our internal love.
That's good. That's good. Amen. Amen. So it seems like intimacy is the most important part of that relationship. That's good.
And more important, if we turn that into a question, the question becomes, I'll say if and then, as an if and then theory, if in fact intimacy is the most, and I think it is.
I think it is too.
And if in fact intimacy, right, is the most important thing, then why is there not more emphasis in the relationship? Because there's a lot of emphasis on the relationship in finger pointing. There's a lot of emphasis in the relationship of winning.
That's true.
You know, I just want to win the argument, or I just want to be right at all costs. There's a lot of focus in places that really don't bring you closer together. They actually cause you to be further apart.
Vandy, I think one of the reasons is because people are not taught this kind of information about intimacy and how your relationship should mirror Christ, which you're in that mirrors your mate. People are not taught this information, so they don't know how to put this first, or that they should put this kind of thing first. You know, you get into a relationship and he looks cute, she looks cute, you hook up and that's it. Then here comes trouble, here comes the trials and tribulations. But people don't have the tools to maintain and to get through those, navigate those difficult seasons, and learning how to put, intimacy first, and learning how to put their mate, as a priority. People are not taught that.
Well, I love the fact that you actually are using nautical terms to say navigate. And the key thing is, think about it from this vantage, and we talked about this at our recent relationship summit. Most people don't look at the relationship as a relationship, as a vessel, as a boat, as a relationship. Most people are not looking at it as this ship, this connection is supposed to take me into my destiny, into my happiness, into my happily ever after, into my joy, into my happy place, my emotional and relational wealthy place. And as a result, they get on the relationship. So when I say relationship, just think relation, boat, love boat, do whatever you want with it. And as a result, imagine someone saying, we're going to take a ship around, a cruise around the world, and they don't pack anything. They don't take anything with them. They don't take enough provisions for the journey. So most people, to your point, they go into the relationship thinking only about the sun and the water glistening, and the warm fuzzy breeze and the warm feeling in our chest, and it's going to be great. And you said this at our summit. You said that most people fail to prepare themselves. Right. They don't even give proper provision to the journey. So as a result, they show up on the relationship or with just a picnic basket, not realizing you're going to need years and years and years of provision, years and years and years of forgiveness, years and years of being prepared for some storms along the way to your happily ever after. And when we say happily ever after, again, we are not speaking fantasy. We're speaking about happy after you've had some intense
moments of fellowship, aka arguments.
Happy after your mate has disappointed you. Happy after some of the things that you thought you'd never have to deal with, you have been dealing with. There is a way for you to be or to discover your happily ever after. And so what Love and Happiness, what this is really about, is teaching you how to create your happily ever after. You've already argued. You've already had your intense moment of fellowship.
That's right.
You've already broke up, made up. You've already gave up. You've already decided it'll never get better. But the devil is a liar.
That's right.
There is happiness on the other side. And so knowing that, hey, I'm getting on this relationship, And when you already know that, hey, I've got on this thing thinking we would never ever be in strife,
or needing the safety raft or the life raft or
the life
first
jacket.
aid kit that nothing's ever going to go wrong.
Right.
But things do happen.
Yeah.
Challenges do occur. You know, there's some things that happen. Kids get out of control. Bills get their debt. Different things that come in to make that relationship.
Yeah. To cause them storms.
Right.
You know, to cause the water to get rocky, and then you need to take seasick pills because your mate's making you sick, and you're like, I need something, you know, or the storm gets so dark and you get lost, and then you need to find your flare gun.
Yeah.
And the flare is a signal for help, and that is where shows like this and getting some great biblical counseling for your relationship, there's a value when you can just send the flare up and say, hey, I need help. Because for some reason people seem to think they're just supposed to know how to create something that they've never done before.
And love isn't enough.
Yeah.
Love is not enough. Just because you love your mate does not mean that you can navigate those storms without hurting each other along the way.
So by the time you get there, it's hard for you to stay intimately connected. You know, and when we would go through those storms, oftentimes it's because we have a goal in mind that we've been able to navigate. Because anybody who tells you they never have a storm, you really should run from them. They're probably not being forthright.
They're lying.
Even if their testimony is, we used to have many storms and now we're smoothly sailing. There ought to be some evidence of life. Is all I'm saying. Some proof of life that you all have lived something and learned along the way. And one of the things that we had learned is as we go through the storms and the waters, and the thing about in the Bible, it speaks about a tempest coming suddenly, unexpectedly. They weren't looking for it. And that's how oftentimes in the relationship it happens. You know, you're sitting at the dinner table having a wonderful time, and 10 minutes later you're like, I lost my appetite. I don't even want to eat. I don't know why we're here. Whatever that is, when those sudden moments occur, you need to have a beacon. You need to have a compass, something that you're aiming towards, and aiming towards, hey, we want to overcome these storms and still be in love. You know, we want to overcome these challenges and still like each other. You know, because you can love your mate,
but don't like them at all. Can't stand them.
If you lose the like, your intimacy is definitely going to be affected. Because you know, you can love someone that you have no desire to be around. But if you really like that person, you will kind of find a reason and a way to be around and in their presence. So what intimacy does is it allows you to get on that relationship with a focus that no matter what happens, we've got to stay connected. No matter what happens, we've got to go through the rocking together. No matter what happens, if you need to take something to not be sick of me, take it. You know, if you need to pray. If you need to get counseling, get counseling. Whatever that is, but understand you need to do something to weather the storm.
Amen.
You can't just ride until the boat crashes or dashes against stone. You have to be willing to say, you know what, I really do want us to be better. So what are we going to do? Because, you know, as you know, if you visited our website, it specifically says no one gets their happily ever after, they create their happily ever after. So there's things you must do in order to get what you desire from the person. So you can't get what you desire if you choose to hold a grudge, if you choose to stay angry, if you choose not to do positive things in light of negative situations.
Amen. That's true.
Now, I really want to talk about this for a second. You have to be willing to do positive things in the midst of negative situations.
That is real good.
If you really desire at all to redeem and restore intimacy. Negative things will cause you not to be in the mood to do positive things. So just like as with our relationship with Christ, when we fall short, that's not our cue to go further away from God.
He still covers us.
He covers
through
us.
that moment that we're having.
But we should not say, well, I already messed up once. I may as well mess up again.
No.
And I may as well keep the party going.
No.
And I may as well take this even to the, deeper level of transgression.
No.
It ought to look like I made a mistake. Now it makes me fall like Christ did in his carrying the cross. He fell forward. He fell towards his assignment. Mm-hmm. So when I fall short, I have to fall towards my happily ever after, mm-hmm. towards the path of forgiveness, mm-hmm. towards the path of communication, right. to grow from it, to learn from it, to develop from it, but most importantly, to remember that we need to be intimately connected mm-hmm. if we're going to be happy. That's right. You can be okay with joy, and that's fine, because the joy of the Lord is our strength. Happiness, however, requires us to put in some effort mm-hmm. and find a place that we can be happy with each other even after some disappointments. And that requires some specific and deliberate effort.
That's right.
Yeah. So you had some more questions?
Well, it's not so much of a question, Vandy. It's actually, I would like for you to share the revelation about the intimacy in the veil.
Oh, the veil of the temple.
Right, yes. Okay. That's really good.
Looking at intimacy through the veil of theology, what we know about what happened during Christ's crucifixion is the veil of the temple was rent. Mm-hmm. So the veil, before Christ gave his life for us, was designed to keep everything and everyone outside of the Holy of Holies. So that veil represented you are not able, or a flesh part of you was not able to transcend to where the spirit was supposed to be. So when Christ died and he did away with the veil being torn from the top to the bottom, meaning God did that work, what happens is in a relationship, when you go into a marriage, you're going into a relationship saying, hey, what God has put together, let no man put asunder. So you're saying that God is the one who put you together. And so now all the flesh that is the marriage, all the flesh, well we'll say it this way, that is the wedding. The wedding is the flesh. The wedding is the show. The wedding is the dress up, for the party, the dress up for the occasion, and everything is all about being dressed up. All of that is the flesh. It's the outer court. It's not the inner court. That stuff doesn't last. That is what sacrifice, and it's over. And then it needs another sacrifice. And if you keep feeding fleshly things, you'll never get to the real intimacy that is beyond the veil. So the wedding is on the outer court, but the marriage is beyond the veil. Mm-hmm. And by that, what I mean, the marriage, the part of the relationship that really allows two to become one, that part of the relationship is designed to occur as you leave the unholy or the fleshly things out. And then, just as Christ in the Bible, we see he's on Golgotha Hill, he sacrifices himself one place, the temple and the veil is rent in another. Right. So what happens is, as I make these decisions to forgive and to not judge, and Christ didn't condemn those, he prayed for those. Father, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. He showed love by staying on the cross. Yes, when you show love to your mate instead of lashing back out, mm-hmm. and everything, it allows you, by you suffering something that may be unfair in their behavior. Mm-hmm. I'm just talking about when we mishandle each other's heart, right. not talking about abuse. Uh-huh. So that's no license for some abusive person to say, see, that's right, keep taking it.
No.
It's not about that. It's like, girl, run if that's happening. This is about you understanding that, hey, when we mishandle each other's heart, I still have a responsibility to know that if I can love you past your shortcomings, mm-hmm. if I can say that you need this forgiveness mm-hmm. as much as I do. And then when I give that forgiveness in this situation, I'm actually blessing my intimacy mm-hmm. That's good. For years to come. Mm-hmm. I'm actually blessing seasons I have yet to see, because I'll never have the fullness of the relationship if I cannot operate with the things that Christ did for us on the cross, the sacrifice, the forgiveness. He was innocent, so sometimes you're not even the person who is the wrong, who is the person who did wrong, mm-hmm. but you're the person who's going to have to look at the greater good, just as Christ did. He was innocent, and he said, I'm going to look at what you need. I'm going to look past your faults to see your need. And when you need that relationship to succeed, as long as you have, just as we have to do with Christ, have to be willing to repent. It can't be somebody willing to stay the same. You have to be willing to continue to press toward the mark and say, Christ, I'm going to be better. And in the marriage, in the relationship, I understand, I have to be better. I have to be better. Own it. And then when you have both people operating in forgiveness and taking responsibility, you have a really great shot at creating intimacy and going beyond the veil into the place where intimacy is so special that just as the priest would and when they would go and light those particular incenses, it would be special fragrances and they would be used just for that particular. Well, when you create that level of intimacy beyond the veil, you would never connect with anyone like you would your mate. You wouldn't have 2 or 3 relationships with other people or friendships. You'll say, oh, that's my friend, that's my friend. They will never be able to touch the level of intimacy that you have with the person you love. And that's how God designed it. He did not design it that you would be sharing the same fragrance and incense with everyone on the job or someone who maybe you feel understands you better, or someone who maybe makes you feel something that you used to feel when you were a kid. But you would understand, hey, this is reserved for my mate. This is reserved. And when you both are operating with the knowledge that we're going to protect and preserve what's special and unique for us, that no one else can smell, touch, or feel, you create and insulate your relationship with intimacy. That's just phenomenal.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I mean, for teaching us. That was great.
So what else are we talking about?
That's a drop the mic moment, okay? What else can you talk about? Boom.
If you have any questions about your relationship, and sometimes you do, but you don't know who to ask, you don't know who to turn to, just email us any questions you may have about relationships.
Do you have an interesting relationship story or testimony and would like to be a guest on our show? Whether you're single, in a relationship, or married, we'd love to hear what you've learned or overcome. With technology, we can interview you from anywhere in the world, and your story can inspire and bless millions. Just go to our website, loveandhappiness.tv, and right on our home screen, you'll see Want to be a guest on our TV show? Just click, and all the directions are there. We can't wait to hear from you.